My name is Siamak, and this is my geosynthetics podcast. So this podcast episode is because of the situation around the world, and as you know, the COVID-19 global pandemic, and therefore we're using Microsoft Teams to record this podcast. My guest today is Kent van Maubeuge from Germany, and I'm sitting in Brisbane, Australia, talking to Kent in, you tell me, Kent, which city in Germany you live in?
Yes, hello everyone. It's Espelkamp in North Germany. Okay. I can't say it's a big city, it's a small one, but that's where I am.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned the name, because there's no way that I could pronounce that. So Kent is a very well-known person in the geosynthetics industry. He has more than 35 years of experience in different geosynthetics applications and different parts of the industry. He has a wealth of knowledge, and I want to start with my question about your career, Kent. 35 or more than that years in this geosynthetics industry. Where did you start? When was that, and how did that happen?
Well, after university, I looked for a job as everybody did, and I started in consulting. But I always wanted to go into research and development. But those jobs are not like on the table, and I think you need more experience to get to those jobs. So after about 1.5 years' time, I got a leaflet into the company about geosynthetics, and I read through it, and I said, oh, okay, never heard about that. We never heard about that in university. And so I thought it was interesting, and then I just put it in the files and said, okay, maybe one of these days I'll use it and need it. And then a month later, maybe, there was an open position at a big company. At that time, it was the company Hoechst, also maybe known as Hoechst Celanese, who produce Travera spunbond material, and they were looking for somebody, a geotechnical person for research and development in geosynthetics. So I applied for that job, and then I started with research and development and a bit marketing at the beginning, and that's how I came to geosynthetics. And after that, after like 4 or 5 years, you build up your reputation and everything. Then I was it's a small anecdote. I was sitting in the plane next to George Herten, who was managing director of a big German company. And at that time, a friend of mine was looking for a job. And I asked him whether he's interested in a good person. And his answer was, yeah, I'm always interested in good people for our company. What about you? Don't you want to come to us? And my father taught me never say no. So I listened, I went up, and I started working for Naue, and that's where I still am.
Yep, perfect. And then other than your professional experience as an engineer working in a geosynthetics, you have also a lot of other involvements in different sections. I want us to look at your involvement with standardization. You're active in the different geosynthetics standards such as ISO or ASTM, and you've held different positions in that area. If you want to tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for bringing that up. Yes, I'm very much involved in standardization. It all started in the 90s, early 90s, as we had our involvement with geosynthetic clay liners in North America. And it was obviously that we had to develop standards and test methods for GCLs, geosynthetic clay liners. And so that's where I started. And in the meantime, and that group, I'm leading the geosynthetic clay liner group. Also at SEN level, I'm in charge as convener of all barriers and the head of delegation for the ISO standardization group. So there's a lot of things happening there. I think it's important that you have to be involved in them. You have to either as an engineer or a researcher, I think if we don't have the standards and people are fighting against, I'm using this method, the other guy's using that test method, they don't get together, the values don't tell you the same thing, you have a wrong basis. So I think it's important that we, for all geosynthetic groups, that people get involved there and bring in their experience, and also not necessarily always to develop new test methods, but over the years, you have to improve them. Like if we look at the free swell test method as an example, we started with that one and we have a variation between labs of 40–50% in results. So you have to improve that over time. You have to do round robin tests. You have to find out where did we make a mistake, or where is it maybe not described perfectly. Also, the products continue to develop. Like in GCLs, we have polymer modified bentonites. They don't work with the free swell test method because it doesn't tell you anything about the bentonite. It tells you more about the polymers. So maybe we're too fast with a few things and too slow with the others, but I think that's a very important part to get things done. At SEN level, the situation is a bit different because in SEN level, we're trying to unify the European market and get CE certification. So basically saying that we want to have free trade and you have to have a basis. There, it's more a political issue. You have to speak with the people of different countries. You have to try to get their attitudes together. And you can imagine that if you have an Italian, a French, a German, a Swiss, just to name a few, in one group, they all have different attitudes and interests, and also their personalities are different. And there you're more the moderator and trying to get those things. But I think it's important that we work on these things and discuss, and don't try to use them as an advantage for a product group or the other one. So I think you have to shut off your commercial thoughts, and you have to try to look at it from the technical point of view. And that's for sometimes a bit difficult, because in the background, of course, you're paid by your company. Mm-hmm. But if you keep and that's my attitude at least, or I try to do that, I'm an engineer. So I've tried to keep it on the engineering side and say, okay, is this engineeringly correct or is it commercial? And so I try to follow that path. So I think it's important that you do work on those things. Yeah, absolutely. And keeping everything unbiased and purely technical. So I also know that you teach in a university in Germany. So I think that comes from your interest in teaching generally. What do you find interesting in doing that? And you've been doing it for years and years. And what do you enjoy most about that? Let me start out what I don't enjoy most of that. What I don't enjoy most of that is that the students every year have the same age and I get a year older every year. Teaching is my passion. I love to, and that maybe also goes in presenting, I love to give what I learned to young people, because I learned as I was a young guy a lot from my professors, and I had that attitude that I went up, I spoke with them, and I listened to them. And it is the same what I do. I mean, our industry is so small and so unique. It's a specialist industry. You know, you don't just go to university and learn about these things. You have to teach it. So that the professors typically, and I don't want to say all of them, but a lot of the universities are not set up for teaching geosynthetics. It's getting much better. So I think I'm doing this now 18 years already, where I started. My first university. So I have 2 universities here around the area where I give lectures. I have a few more asking, but I just can't handle that much. Otherwise, I could be a full-time professor. Yeah. The most thing is I like this interaction with the students. I don't stand up there and teach to them straightforward from my point and do a presentation like you do in a conference where you just talk for 4 hours. What I do is I ask them questions. I give them a problem. I say, okay, here we had a failure. What's the cause? Or here we have this, we want to build a house on this type of soil or a steep wall. What are the solutions? And you can then get much more out of the attitude of those people, how they think. And it's interesting that it's every year different. But students from every year have a different approach on things. Sometimes they come up with very good ideas. Sometimes it's like they say nothing, and then it's a bit difficult to activate them.
Yeah.
Also, what I like very much is that afterwards you have interested students who want to do their bachelor or their master's on geosynthetics, and then you can give them a topic which you cannot do in your day-to-day business. You just don't have the time. And it's not things where, you want to compare product A with B. It's something I always wanted to know. How does this material perform with that? Or what happens if I do this? Those questions I have as a researcher in my mind. Yeah. And then I can give it to the student. And at the end, it's also a good possibility to search for resources for the future. You make contacts which last. I mean, I have students which did their bachelor and master's years ago. I still have contact with them. They still contact me if they have a question, and they remember you and I remember them, and that's positive. That's really the best of all.
Exactly. It's a very strong feeling that you see how your students actually developing into their profession in the future. Yeah. So my other question is about your involvement with society activities. So IGS, International Geosynthetics Society, is a good example. I sort of do similar things, and I have my passion in society activities. I know you have been doing this for many, many years, and you're still involved. You have held different positions in different parts of the world, and very active in the Geosynthetic Society. Tell us about your experience, or what do you find interesting in those activities?
Well, we have these societies like the IGS or the GSI, the Bob Kerner Institute. We have those. We have the EAGM, the European one, the GMA, IBG, the German one, and the Australian ones. So they're all over the world. Mm-hmm. And I think it's our passion. What we have to bring in is again, it's like teaching. We have to bring out the word of geosynthetics because they are sustainable. They are economically wise, ecologically, they're good products. We have to teach those things. And you can do that alone, which is difficult, or as a company, which is difficult, or you can do it in a society with a group of people together, and then you have the mass of people behind you spreading out the message. However, you need horses in there. You need people who pull the wagon and do something. And I personally, I'm not the person who sits back and just does nothing. I know that I step up with my voice. It's not always well received if I tell the opinion which others don't like, but I don't care too much about that because I think we have to express what we think to get discussion rolling on. It's like the devil advocate. You need those people. And I just love doing that. It's because it's like teaching. I know you organize those workshops, you get the community together, you're doing things for the industry because at the end, if the geosynthetics cake doesn't grow, but we're getting more companies in it, it's not going to pay back, especially for manufacturers. So that's, again, what I think you have to get involved. You can't just sit back and complain. That's not the right position. You go in and complain and do things and take responsibility. And as I said, the TC Barrier group, as an example, we couldn't accomplish everything we wanted to do because sometimes your mind thought is much further. You think you can do more, but then you again have your other job, which you have to take care of. So, but we did a lot, like we held 2 workshops, we were bringing out leaflets, we're trying to do a flyer, a video, we're doing things and being active. And if you constantly keep that ball rolling, then I think it's going to be good for the industry. And it's fun as well. You meet a lot of people and you can battle yourself with good people because you have to bring your position up against others. And I think young people should do that much more as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the social skills that you learn from being involved in a society is very important. And I wanted to ask at the end of this episode about back to your career. Kent, what do you think has been one highlight or one thing that you always remember when you look back more than 35 years in this industry? What is that, and why do you think that can be your career highlight?
Okay, well, I hope this question is not aimed in that direction, that I'm at the end of my career. I still have plans for the future. There's a lot of things. If I would now start pointing out things which impressed me most, or which made my highlight of the career, I don't want to point out anything in my direction personally, because it's I think it's not important whether you had an invention or a patent or a big presentation or whatsoever. But yes, there are a few big highlights. I think the most and the biggest highlight, what I would like to point out, is the friendships I gained with people. And you learn people, and you learn how, are they really friends or just business friends? Yeah. And those who help you in the times where you had troubles, and not personal troubles, like my mother died, and a guy I've been involved, he sent flowers, it's, you see, they care. Or people, if you have a question, for me personally, Bob Kerner, he was one of those persons I could go to him and ask him personal questions, business related as well, and he was there as like a father. So those things were for me much more important than being able to say, I got this award, I got this award, I got this presentation, I got this patent, I got this big great job. That's honestly for life redundant. And I met so many nice people, including you, Amia, Bruno Herlin, Robert Lozano, just to mention a few who've been with me. The Kerner family, George and Bob Kerner, yes, they honored me by giving me the honorary lecture, Bob Kerner lecture, a few years ago at the Geo Middle East. Yeah. The ASTM award, the award of merit I got from ASTM, I think that's one of my highlights, because that came totally unexpected. And up to then, not many manufacturers or Europeans at all got it. So that was an honor. Maybe that was one highlight, which I really would say with the Bob Kerner lecture, those two, they are on the top. But there's so many other things, which all the good wines and steaks I had, I shouldn't forget those either. With you as well. It's the relationships. And I think that's all what counts, and everything else. Money. Many people are on business. Of course, we live on that, but the other things are, they stay in your heart and in your mind rather than other things. So the highlights are the people. Definitely.
I was really expecting that the wine to be part of that answer, so I'm happy with that. And perfectly honest, I think, I know that you've had 35 or more years in the industry, and this is not the end of it. As you mentioned, it's going to hopefully continue another 35 years.
Okay.
One day, business and professional engineering will end, but the friendship lasts forever.
Absolutely.
So that is a very, very important thing. Thanks, Kent, for your time and for talking to me today and to my audience. Very, very interesting conversation with you today. Hope it's 8 in the morning in Germany. It's towards the end of the day here in the afternoon, late afternoon in Australia.
Have my coffee.
Yes. Enjoy your day. And thanks very much.
Thank you very much, and good luck with your fantastic podcast. I really think it's totally, absolutely interesting, because you're going to the people and asking questions about them as well, and that's good. Keep on with it. Don't stop. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Glad to hear that. Thanks, Ken.